We're hitting our short shots around the green. Our base of support, our stance width is going to be quite narrow. Like really between my heels, I really only have the width of the head of the wedge. I'm going to, and this is a preference that I like to see with people, I'm going to ever so slightly bank that trail side down. Okay, so by rolling that trail side in, as I swing my arms and rotate my body to the right, it prevents me from unknowingly shifting my mass over, okay? Because if I move too much and sort of sway off the ball this way, unknowingly, that can factor into where that golf club inevitably comes and touches the ground. So one main thing that we always have to consider here is that contact is crucial. We must hit golf ball first. We must learn a strategy that allows us to have the low point just after that golf ball. So one that works quite well is just rolling that right side in. Movement wise, I really just feel as though for a stock chip shot, I'm letting the rib cage rotate, letting the knees sort of softly match up. I'm not thinking too much about down here. I'm just focusing more on getting most of that motion from up here. For a stock shot, there's not too much going on with the loading of the arms. As the shot gets longer, or as I need or require a higher trajectory or a little bit more spin, now I can add in a little bit more of that load. Okay, so that the wrists are going to load up. I might get a little bit more right elbow bend. That's going to be a factor that I can utilize if I'm looking for a little bit more height, more spin. Okay, but for the most part, we can get away probably 80% of the time, 90% of the time, by just allowing our chest to rock back and forth. Okay, so a nice quiet movement like that. Now, with this move, with this short shots, because there's no demand for power, we don't need to have pressure shift. I don't need to be loading into that right side, shifting back into that left side. I can basically stay more isolated and just allow the body to turn, okay? As we start getting into these longer wedge shots, there is an increased demand for power, okay? So if I'm getting into like a stock sand wedge, which for me, it's a 115 shot, okay? For most stock sand wedge is going to be, 80 to 90 yards. So sort of the full distance of a sand wedge. We now have more of a standard stance width. We now will load into that trail side and push off it into that lead side. So that's where things start to look a little bit different, is that we start to use the feet a little bit more as we demand more power, okay? Now, when we're talking, and you made reference to this idea of shallowing. So with these shots, we want to, for the most part, stay just as neutral as we would be for our normal full swing. We want to keep the club head just in front of the hands, allow things to stay nice and wide coming down, and have nice extension on the way through. Ideally, we wouldn't have the golf club working inside. Okay, that's always going to make it want to work more outside. So I'd like to create more of a neutral swing direction, whether it's a short game shot or a long game shot, okay? There are certain situations where we actually need to get a little bit steeper. One would be if the golf ball was sitting down a lot, if it was in a divot or in an indentation and I needed to get steeper on this, that would be a situation where we might see more of a vertical takeaway to really encourage more of that downward strike. But for the most part, like a vast majority of the shots, we're just really looking for neutral takeaway, allow us to stay nice and wide. Okay, so a lot of the shallowing really just comes from the fact that we're keeping width. Okay, when we get a little bit narrower, so when we are trying to create more height, more spin, and we're getting that golf club to load up a little bit more, that golf club's obviously closer to us. Okay, so one of the key factors is we still need to make sure that we let this go. Okay, if we're trying to create spin, I'm going to hinge this here, but I'm absolutely going to be unhinging that on the way through. So allowing the club head to pass the hands on the way through. All right, so a few ideas for you. Hope that this gives you some clarity. We can obviously chat more on this and different sort of customized options for hitting different shots around the green. But that's really the basics of it in terms of how the pressure works in the feet, how we want that club swinging. For the most part, When we're in close, okay, if you're inside of 30 yards, I want you to work on being able to execute this shot with no divot, okay? Just being able to have the golf club sliding through and clipping that golf ball off the turf with just a subtle brush of the ground. As we start getting outside of 30, we're going to start taking increasingly larger divots, okay? Upwards of those full wedges, which should take good size pelts. All right, so hope that helps. Look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care.